Hey folks, welcome back. So in this video I'll be just going about on replacing the clutch on the E39 M5. Yeah, I know it's a pretty major job, at least for me. So I'll be just going over with all the details. So along with the clutch I did replace a bunch of bushings along with it, and we'll go in detail in this video. And a fair warning is like this is going to be a pretty lengthy video, and I'm actually going as detailed as about it. So the whole work actually took almost a month. Yeah, I know it's pretty long, but considering that I've never done any work underneath the car, except for a few oil changes and a few other minor things. At least for me, this is a pretty major task because you need to take out almost like half of the car underneath it, like starting from the exhaust, drive shaft, transmission, and till flywheel. You almost reach till flywheel. So this is a pretty major work, and it also needs some precision alignment and fitting when you put all those things back. So at every step I did my research and I did learn a lot in the overall process. More than that, it also required a lot of physical effort to actually do this. So even before that, like let me also go over like why I decided to change the clutch. Considering this, I just very recently got this car like 4 months back. So when I took for a test drive, everything showed up well and it was behaving well for a month. But after that, I slowly started noticing some slippages. And at one fine day, like I just took for a very aggressive pulls and it completely slipped off. And yeah, let's go over this video, right? Okay, I'm on the 6th gear and I'm going around 60. I'm going to step on the gas and let's see what happens. So there you go. I think the clutch is toast. The RPM just raised without the speed. Let's try it out again. Okay, I'm gonna punch on the gas. What time? It's completely toast. Okay, so that you saw. And I swear that the clutch was completely engaged at that time and completely slipped through, and it became so worse that I wasn't even able to get this car up on my driveway. It became that bad. So at that point I decided, okay, you need to replace this clutch. Okay, so I have removed like all the bolts and the nuts for the exhaust. Right now it's in just hanging in the jack support. I'm just going to lower it right now. So I'm just trying to organize this, like all the nuts and bolts of exhaust separately, transmission separately. But let me show you how it is right now. So this is the maximum height of jacks. So let me show you like where all the bolts and nuts are removed. So let me start from the front. Okay, so there are 4 pipes, 2 on each bank. Okay, so it's a combination of nut and bolt. I believe all are like 12 mm. These are all removed. It was pretty hard, so but I used PB blaster to remove it off. So this is the exhaust manifold, and the first hanger is over here, like basically like a bracket hanger, I would say. 2 bolts over here. I think these are like 13 mm. So, and if you just go across, like all the O2 sensor, the wires are all removed right now. Some of the videos suggested that you can just remove the O2, but I'm not going to take any chances. These are pretty much rusted and it could pretty much easily break off. So instead of removing the O2 sensor from the pipes, I've actually like disconnected the wires. That seems to be a much more straightforward. And this is the second hanger over here. It's all removed. So right now it's resting on the jacks, and the final hanger at the tail is also removed. So let me just go ahead and lower the jacks and let's see. So as you can see, like I finally managed to pull out the entire exhaust. It's actually a single piece unit. So that connects to the exhaust headers and the catalytic converter, the pre and the post O2 sensors, and the resonators. And as you know from my previous video, it has a muffler delete. Okay, so now we need to remove the heat shields. So it's going to be like this: two on either sides, one over here on the driver's side and one on the passenger side, and one which covers the propeller shaft. So I think on the one which covers the propeller shaft is a 8 mm bolt, and the rest are all 10 mm. So let's go ahead and remove that. Okay, something very important to note before you remove the guibo from the propeller shaft and the transmission. So as you know, there are like 6 bolts, but only like 3, I don't know how do you call, but 3 flanges or 3 fingers for this entire flanges, 3 on the propeller shaft side and the 3 on the transmission side. So those are like direction oriented, meaning like I'm not sure if you can see it. You see a arrow over here and also an arrow over here, and the arrow points that the flange finger has to align with that. So for example, this finger aligns with this arrow, the arrow pointing towards this direction, and the same thing, like the arrows pointing towards that direction. So in this case, the transmission flange finger has to align. Okay, so there you go. The slave cylinder is off. Okay, I'll just tie it out separately on the exhaust once later. So I'll go ahead and disconnect all the wires. So these are the O2 sensor wires. Basically it's been supported on the transmission carrier bracket over here. So there are like many clips. Just remove it and just make it loose, and there are other connectors over here. You have to just remove it. So let me just go ahead and do it.
There's another connector over here. That was easy. So now I'll be just removing the bolt and the nut on the carrier bushing. Okay, so finally I managed to take out the propeller shaft from the transmission. So out of the 6 bolts, after some heavy impacting, I was able to get only the 3 which is connected to the transmission, and as you can see, the remaining 3 are still connected with the propeller shaft. The gear is still there. Actually, I'm planning to also replace it, so maybe I'll just completely remove the propeller shaft and I'll just figure out a way to remove these bolts. I don't know, these are like torqued to 1,000,000 foot-pounds or something. I don't know, maybe I'll deal with this later. For now, let me just focus on getting the transmission out. So I got the transmission jack today, and I'll be removing all the bolts on the bell housing, and I'll try to lower the transmission. Let's see how it goes. So what I did is I installed the carrier frame for the transmission back temporarily just by using 2 bolts, so that I can just lower the floor jack and replace it with the transmission jack, and then start unbolting all the bolts on the transmission bell housing. There you can actually see the shifter linkage connecting to the back side of the transmission over here. And I always had this vibration whenever I come to a neutral. I had this vibration on my shifter knob, and just check out the play over here. I think this bushing, whatever is gone, it's gone away. I think I need to replace it. So let's see how bad it is. just show you. Just check this out. So I bought a 2-foot extension socket, and I did sellotaped. I did tape the combination of universal joint, and these are the ones I still need to remove. There's one here, one there, and there is, I'm not sure if you can see it, there's one over here. If that is done, I think the driver's side is done. Then I'll just focus on the passenger side bell housing bolts. So one key thing to note when you remove the bell housing bolts, so as you can see, like each one is in different dimension. So the way I'm like noting down is, I just have a picture of the bell housing with the numbers. It's still incomplete. I'll be just updating this as and when I just remove the bolt. So I'm just making a note of how the bell housing bolts are, looking from behind the transmission, and I'm also numbering it here. This is number 1, number 5, and number 3, like that. There we go, finally popped up. Okay, there you go, finally it popped up. I think the bushing is completely gone. Let me check. Yeah. So I removed the propeller shaft yesterday. So it had like 16 mm. So I think the key thing is just to make sure to get out of the bolts without disturbing the CV joint, which I did. So I think this might even need a replacement of the input seal. I don't know. I'll come back that on later. And I'm using a 2-foot extension to remove it. As you can see, I just removed like a couple of bolts on the top. Still have a few more, and the toughest one is going to be the one at the very top. Let me see how I can get that out. Okay, now the transmission now is out, and but I don't have enough clearance to completely remove under the car. So I think the way I'm going to do is, I'm just going to jack up the front of the car on the front subframe and try to somehow like pull it through over there. So I got the transmission off the transmission jack. The reason being is even with the transmission jack, I was getting an additional 1 feet. It was just standing up. I didn't have the enough clearance, so I just kind of rolled it down in a cardboard sheet. I'm just going to pull it out now. So I'm just going to remove the pressure plate. I've loosened all the torque on these bolts. Just going to remove it. Okay, so here we go. The clutch is totally toast. Good that it didn't just... Let's check out the dust pad. Okay, I don't see any grooves in the flywheel, so I think the flywheel is still good. Okay, the clutch is completely worn out. Good that it didn't eat through the rivets. Yeah. And the flywheel itself seems to be okay. I don't see any grooves, so I won't be replacing the flywheel this time. Okay, so I'll be removing the bushing. I think it's pretty much, I'm not sure if you can see, but this is pretty much gone. It's like I can just get the rubber sticking all over the place. So I don't really have a good way of doing it other than just to cut it. So let me just go ahead and just do that. Okay, there we go. One of the reason is I actually ordered the entire refresh for the shifter kit, like all the bushings, and one of the reason is it was like the whole knob was like vibrating a lot. So I'm in the process of removing the pilot bearing, removing the removal tool. So this is a generic tool I just got from eBay. But I think I'm almost going to get it out. So let's do it. Okay, there we go. Got the pilot bearing out. So here it is. It's not that bad in shape, but anyway I just got a new one, so I'll be replacing it. Okay, I just received the oil for the differential. So this one is a limited slip differential and would take around 1.2 quarts of oil. So there are like different oil being suggested all over the internet. This is what I'm going. I'm going with the liquid moly, with which I have had some pretty good results on my other 328i. So I'm just going to prefer that brand, and the viscosity is going to be 75 W140, And it's also suggested that you need to have a friction modifier. Again, there are various oils over here. You can just get it in as a one oil with the FM, but here I would just prefer liquid moly, and I will just add an external friction modifier. So let's get it started. Okay, so the key thing is the car has to be leveled. So I'm on the passenger side of the differential. So as you can see, there are two bolt. Both are like T14 socket. So this is the fill plug and this is the drain plug. And so the way general idea is you always break open the fill plug first, and then the drain plug, drain all the oil, and then you just tighten this up, fill it with 1.2 quarts of oil. So in this case I'll be just mixing the frictional modifier along with the liquid moly oil and get it done. So the differential actually looks more bad than as it should be. It's because of the seals that are leaking. So ideally it needs a seal on the input, one on the input side and the two on the output flange side, which I'll be just performing it later. It's like too much of work to go along with the transmission, so I'll be just doing that a little later. So let's get it started. It doesn't look that bad, so that's good. And I'm going to let it sit for like 30 minutes. I think the torque setting is around 50 Nm, but I'm just going to tighten it up roughly now. Okay, so now I'll be filling the differential with the friction modifier using the fill hole. You see here is the slave cylinder. Yeah, I'm just going to replace that. And that's the white lithium grease. Basically you use it for the somewhere on the throwout bearing and the input sleeves of the gearbox where the metal to metal contact is there. And next one is a silicone lubricant. I think this is mainly, I'm just trying to use it on the rubber bushings when I replace the all the bushings in the shifter linkage. And I think the next two are the brake cleaner. So let me just go over the other package, which pretty much has everything. So I got like 2 liters for the manual transmission. I think it's going to hold for like 1.3 or 1.4 liters. So I just got 2 liters over here. Got 3 half liters of .4 brake fluid. Apparently the clutch also uses the brake fluid using the same reservoir, as I'll be replacing the clutch. The clutch slave cylinder. You also need to bleed it, so you need some extra amount of the brake fluid. And those two are the new transmission mounts, and that one is the flex or the Gaibo disc. And coming over here, okay, so let's start with the simpler one. So this is the pivot pin, and this is the pivot itself. This is an this is from this is an upgraded one. This is a metal one. I heard that the plastic ones kind of fails and there are some squeaky noise. I don't know, but just as I'm already there, I'm just going to replace with the metal one over here. And this is the new bolts for the pressure plate. And what is this? Yeah, this is the pilot bearing. And pretty much everything over here. These are the entire bushing set. They actually ship it as a kit, and these were the shifter linkage. It pretty much has all the bushings. There's a pair over here, and this is the other bushing. I don't know the name of the components, but pretty much you're going to just replace everything over here. Okay, so now with all the new parts in, let's start the big job of putting everything back together. So let's start off with the cleanup of transmission a little bit, and let's install the throwout bearing, the pivot pin and the clip holding it, and let's clean up the bell housing with a little bit of brake cleanup. So let's start it. And just remove the clip which holds it, the pivot pin side. Okay. Looks okay. Let me do one final round. Okay, so it's clean now. Let me start putting some new parts. Let me start with the pivot pin. Okay, so these are all metal parts. I'll be just using the white lithium grease, very little bit over here, especially considering this is the clutch part. Okay, so now I just got this initial shift linkage inside. Now I just need to press it and put it this pin so that it stays secure in the place. So I got these inside the new bushings. All I did is just apply some lubricant, silicone lubricant, and I just pressed it with my hand. It just went inside. Okay, so that was quite straightforward. Okay, so I just installed the shifter holding arm, whatever you call, using the lock pin over here. I forgot a video, but all you have to just slide it and just lock it like this. You just like this and just lock it like this. Now it's installed with the new rubber bushings. So hopefully I won't be getting this shifter vibration. Especially I kind of noticed that heavily on the Okay, so I'm trying to replace the manual transmission fluid. So there are two bolts, both are 17 mm. So this is the fill bolt, and the one here, I don't know if you can see it properly. So this is the fill bolt. The one below, this is the drain bolt. So I already breaking free both of the bolts. I just need to unplug, drain the oil, plug this back, fill it through here and again close it. It's much easier while the transmission is out. So that's the new pilot bearing. So I just placed it there. Now I need to so I'll be using a 22 mm socket which perfectly fits the pilot bearing, and I'll be slowly hammering it to push it into place. Just make sure it goes straight. Okay, so the pilot bearing is all in. So I just drained the oil, and I also topped the drain board. So the fill hole is still open, so I'm just going to fill it. So before that, I just want to make sure it is in a steady surface. Okay, so just now I got the package, the clutch for the clutch kit, and this is the load clutch kit for the E39 M5, and this is the direct OEM replacement. So I just want to make sure everything is all stock on this drivetrain. So yeah, so let's open the package and let's find out what we have inside. Okay, so there we go. So we have the new clutch and the pressure plate, and if you could see the so this is the self-adjusting clutch, and it's in the minimum position. So as it keeps varying the clutch, so this one keeps moving, and at the extreme, once when the clutch is completely worn down, it will be over here, the extreme position over here. So, and that's what we saw when we removed the clutch, the old clutch from the flywheel. So right now this is all reset to the lower position. So the way we have to install is, you have to get the clutch and the pressure plate installed with the torque bolts, with the bolts torqued to spec, and then once everything is installed into the flywheel, then you use this is called the shipping plate. So you just remove it once the whole assembly has been mounted to the flywheel. And also we got this throwout bearing and the pilot bearing and the alignment tool and a little bit of grease. Yeah, so let's go ahead and start installing. Okay, so one key thing is to make sure the clutch goes in the right direction, like one side goes to the engine side and one goes to the transmission side. So finally, though, I was trying to figure out this one, and I was just looking all over the clutch, I couldn't figure. Then so this one, the way they pronounce is Getriebesseite. Okay, sorry if I have pronounced it wrong, but that's a German word meaning like the gearbox side or the transmission side. So there you go, that's how I figured out. And one advantage of having a German car, I learned a new word today. Okay, so this is an interesting comparison. So I have the new one. So I have the new one and the old one over here, the clutch, and let's see. Okay, so the new one has a thicker material, the old one is almost worn out. So it really means like it doesn't need to completely go away, but there you see the difference. And I also showed you the clip, like how much it was slipping with the old clutch. So there you get some picture reference between the new one and the old one. Okay, so now some comparison between the old pressure plate and the new one. So as you can see, the old one, the self-adjusting whatever the level is completely overdone, or it's completely out. And here if you see, yeah, it's in the initial level. And again, make sure you don't remove this shipping plate. Okay, so as we talked about earlier, this is the transmission facing side and this is the engine facing side. So I'll be just using the clutch alignment tool. So just make it to center. Okay, so these are new pressure plate bolts. I think the torque setting is around 20 foot-pounds. Okay, so now I'll be just going ahead and removing the shipping plate. So all these 6 bolts are torqued to 20 foot-pounds, and now I just need to remove the shipping plate, and again the aligning tool is still inside. I'll be removing it after that. I think you have to just remove it anti-clockwise. I don't know how much pressure is this, but let me just go and do it. And just take the alignment bolts and just take the alignment tool away. Okay, so there we go. So I just got everything back. I really didn't film because it's mostly the reversal of how you removed stuff. So I got the transmission back, and it is in the supporting bracket. I also got the new Goibo, the new transmission mount installed, and the entire shaft is installed along with the support bearing. And there it just goes with the input shaft. I pretty much didn't disturb the bearings inside. I just got it exactly in as it was, so ideally I shouldn't be getting any vibrations in the drive shaft. And what else? I also got the input shifter linkage with the new bushings over here. This is the one which is causing a lot of vibration, so this is new, and pretty much a lot of bushing has been replaced on the shifter linkage, and it's all in. So I did verify, and everything seems to be working fine, and all the connectors are back. So basically there are 3 connectors. So I think this is the crank shaft sensor. Sorry, this is the I think this is the crankshaft sensor or the flywheel sensor. I think this is the flywheel sensor attached, and these two, there are 2 here. One is over here, and one is over here. I couldn't see it, like somewhere over here. Yeah. So 3 connections, all done, and I also got a new slave cylinder. I think the bleeding took a lot of time, so I did finally get the right pedal feel. So I think pretty much everything's done. All I needed to get is the heat shield and the exhaust, and I think I should be ready for the test drive. Okay, so I've installed all the heat shield covers. So one on the driver's side, one on the center, one on the passenger side over here. So all is pending is just the exhaust and the final plastic covers. Okay, so we are close. Let's see. Okay, so pretty much in the missing puzzle, the last one, the exhaust is going to go inside. Okay, so it is pretty heavy, so I'm going to use 2 jacks, one near the resonator and one somewhere near to the catalytic or in the carrier frame over here. I'll be just lifting it at the same time, and just like bolt it, and from there let's see how it goes. So we are pretty close. Okay, it's positioned now, so I need to use two jacks, one near to the catalytic converter and one on the resonator, to just move it up. It's gonna take some time, so let me just okay, pretty much got everything on the exhaust. So as I said, I used the two jacks, one at the catalytic converter and one at the resonator position, to bring it to position, and just go with the bolts one by one, and I'm almost done. So everything is back. So the exhaust with all the O2 connectors, all are connected on both the sides. I did some quick check to make sure all the bolts and nuts are secured in place. What else? So yeah, I just did document like all the bolts and nuts, and I just went through one rounds of just to make sure everything is torqued and tight. The only thing which has not been installed is the plastic shield cover, which I'll be doing it after the first test drive. So there you see there. So also had this shifter board installed. Okay, so the final step is, yeah, I just need to connect the negative to terminal, and I'm going to start the car in the ramps and trying to put the first gear and see what really happens. Yeah. So let's go ahead and start the car. So here is the car running after 20 miles of test drive. I didn't hear any extra noise. It seems to be almost perfect in shape. Anyway, I'll just wait for at least 500 or 1000 miles of the braking period before it makes any aggressive pulls. No oil leaks. The pulls are already pretty aggressive. Maybe I never drove the car with a proper clutch. Okay, so I took like for a 30-mile test drive, and everything is back to normal. At least it seems like. But I always wanted like double, triple check. Especially we have stripped open like a ton of parts underneath the car. So the car is again on jacks. So I just took the test drive yesterday evening, so it has just cooled off. I just want to make sure a bunch of parts, just to make sure there is nothing uneven, especially the bolts are like snug and it's like tight. So let's go underneath. It's already in jacks, so let me go underneath and let's make sure everything is back in normal shape. Okay. Okay, so that's the bell housing bolt and the slave cylinder over here. It's a little dark. Okay, I don't see anything, any leakage on the new slave cylinder. The bell housing bolts, I don't see anything abnormal over here. I even try to use a wrench to make sure it's not loose, and I didn't see any. and I don't see any oil leaks. This seems to be normal. I just searched the internet and these oil smudges are normal. And the exhaust hanger, just pushing, nope, no play, everything seems to be okay. The exhaust pipe from the exhaust header itself, the bolts are tight. Okay, I think you can see this clearly on the passenger side. Yeah, and when I started the car there was no smoke or anything, so everything is it's a good fit over here. And coming back to the flex disc, okay, I did use the wrench to make sure it's tight. I think it was like 140 Newton meter or like around 100 foot-pounds, and it was still the same, and I don't see any play. I'm just trying to twist it and I'm just trying to shake it. I don't see any single play, which is good. The car is in gear right now. I shouldn't be hearing a single play, so this is good. And all the O2 connectors, I didn't get any error code and it is connected properly. And the carrier for the exhaust, yeah, everything is good. Finally, the differential bolts, and this is the input side of the differential, and everything is again tight and snug. Again, I could hardly even move this, so this is okay. And as I said previously, this needs some kind of maintenance, probably like 10 or 20,000 miles down in the lane. I think all it needs is the seals, but I just replaced the fluid now, so it should go on. And I don't see any leaks, at least from the fill and the drain plug, so that's good. Okay, so I'm underneath the car again, and all the plastic splash shields are back. There's one on the which covers the transmission, and the other one which covers the bottom side of the engine. So both are done, and I did double check all the other screws, and everything seems to be good. So let's give the...
There we come to the final part of this video. So I'm going to break into 3 sections, like the challenges I faced, the mistakes I did during this job, and finally how the results have turned out. So the challenges, I think the lift would have made this whole job much easier, because with this jack stands there are certain things which was like way more tougher than I initially thought. It's not like you cannot do it with a jack, you can certainly do it. It's just the lift would have made the life much easier in, while removing several of the components during this whole clutch job. The second one is removing the flex disc or the geiger bolts. I never thought that would be like, I would be really stuck like 3 or 4 days on that actually. But finally I kind of like figured it out. So that was something like really challenging, at least for me, to get those bolts out. And the mistakes I did, so I got the shifter fork arm installed upside down. Then I verified the pictures I took later, and then I figured it out. It cost me almost like half a day, because I need to lower the jack, lower the transmission a little bit. Not like remove it, just lower it, and then I need to get it right and install it back. The second mistake, yeah, this is funny because like I kind of like broke off the clutch slave cylinder. So how it happened is the slave cylinder was outside of the belt housing, and I was like playing around with the clutch pedal, and it just broke off. It just burst off. I don't know, but later I figured out you shouldn't be doing that. So yeah, so those are the ones, and the results. So I would say like I'm pretty much happy, pleased, and even I'm like surprised the way the whole thing has turned out. So I've put like around 500 miles right now, and I could definitely feel the aggressive pulse, and I could clearly say the difference between how the old clutch performed and the newer one. So again, as I said in some of my previous videos, really there is no words on you yourself doing the job and how things turned out, and feel there's something you have to just feel it. So before you leave, I've also attached a video of this car, so please go and watch and enjoy it as well. Okay. So as usual, thanks for watching this, and have a nice day. Bye. you.